Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to take on another Penn reel. This one's got a problem with the anti-reverse. This is a Penn 160 and just doesn't hold. So there's something going on with the anti-reverse dog. We're going to get underneath that. We're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how to service that. We'll also take a look on the inside while we're at it. But this one's, there's something going on there that's just not right. So we're going to start by removing the handle. That's a 10mm nut. You can just loosen that up, and once you turn that, you can remove it. I said nut, but it's actually a screw, and with a nut top. The old beautiful Bakelite handles, and the star drag we can reverse out as well. And then we can remove the side plate, taking out the ferrule. Now the side plate has got four long screws, 2 short screws on it. The short screws go into the reel seat. And while we're doing this, you're going to notice a couple of things. The first is that I have a protective glove on my non-working hand. That's to keep the contaminants off of the hand as much as possible. It also works as a tool from time to time, as I can spread the greases around and not worry about getting them in on my skin. The second thing we're going to look at in this reel is the interior design. There's 2 different types of springs that go on with this anti-reverse dog. There is a flat spring and a coil spring. So we'll find out which one that is, and that's all about the date that it was manufactured, the coil spring being on the newer ones, and I suspect that's what's here. But we're going to find out just exactly what broke on this one, because there is something that's just not performing properly. So we're going to take the side plate off. That's the rack. We don't need to do anything, but we will put some lube on that back side there. And then this will be what you'll be looking at in terms of the gear side plate. And this is very common for the 160, the 155, and those types of Beachmaster and Beachmaster series. This is what I wanted to show you. There are 2 different size screws. The short one belongs in the reel seat, the long one in the cross posts there. Okay, let's just take care of that one side. We'll just put some grease in there. I'm going to use the Penn Precision Reel Grease for this, and we're just going to put a little bit into the side plate bearing cap, which is the terminus for one side of the spool. This reel is an older reel, but I'm noticing the click tongue is nice and pointed. That should give you a nice loud clicker in the end. Okay, we've done that. Let's come over to the working side of this then. You'll notice that I'm putting all my parts and pieces into a parts tray. That way, when it gets down to the reassembly of this reel, I know where to find everything. I'm just going to reload that spool right now just because it takes up less space. Okay, I'm going to put that off to the side. Alright, so we want to remove the 4 bridge screws here, the 2 up top, 2 below. The 2 up top are partially threaded. That's because springs ride on them from the yoke. The 2 below are fully threaded, and in this case this one has been serviced already, and this has a full threaded screw up top which doesn't belong there, but that's okay. The reason you don't put the full threaded one up top is because springs ride on it, and this is the partial threaded as opposed to the full threaded. Springs ride on this, and if you put the springs onto that, you could catch that thread with the spring and it could impair the operation. So that's why Penn designed it that way, and that's why there's 2 different ones. Here's the one that belonged up top, and so this one should be fully threaded below. Sometimes you find that they've been worked on, somebody lost a screw or broke a screw or something, and you have 3 or so of them. You'll notice that my hand in this case is cupped. That's because when I push this through, that anti-reverse dog is going to be free, and whatever spring is on there could shoot out if you don't protect it. Now, one of our viewers out there suggested taking it apart inside of a plastic bag. That way, if the spring does shoot, the spring stays in the bag. Good idea. I've been doing it this way for a while. I'm going to continue to do it this way, but don't be afraid to take that tip. It's a good one. Okay, I'm going to push through on the bridge then, turn this around, and what we have on this one is the flat spring. And this looks like the spring has lost its tension. That's probably why this anti-reverse dog isn't working. As I mentioned, there's a flat spring and there's a coil spring version of this. In this case, it's the flat spring. I did want to check the condition of the dog itself. This is the anti-reverse dog, and this seems to be fine. And then while we're at it, we'll just take the bridge assembly apart, take a look at those drag washers that are in there. So we can just pull up on that. We have a flat washer below. Might as well do a full service on this. I wasn't intending to do that. I was intending just to fix the reel, but I'm noticing that this gear sleeve here is a little tight, so I'm going to knock the pin out of that holds the gear sleeve in, and grab that with a little pair of pliers. Complete pulling that out. This is the pin we're looking at there, and we can pull this sleeve off, and there's just some little accumulated dried grease in there, so I'm going to take a piece of steel wool, clean that shaft off. I'm going to take a cotton swab and run that up underneath there just to get the old dried grease from a while ago out of there. Once I have that, then I can take the blue grease, put a little bit in. You don't want to put too much in. You don't want to jam the channels. But a little bit is the way that they would have come from the factory, so you can go put it back that way. Reinsert the gear sleeve onto the shaft. Put that pin back in. That pin will ride in the groove that you saw on that. And that's pretty much set there. And let's go over and look at the drag washers while we're at it. These are the older fabric washers, but they look like they're in pretty good condition. These could benefit from a little bit of drag grease, so I use Cal's Universal Drag Grease. I just kind of dip it in there, and again, I use this as a tool sometimes. I'll go ahead and put that one back on. Yeah, these are in good condition. This reel has remained oil. We said that we saw the screw there before that was in the wrong place. Chances are they came in and replaced these drags when they did that. Well, here's one that's not good. So maybe they replaced the bottom too. That's quite a possibility. I'll just clean that off of here. We'll go get another one for that. Now in this drag stack here, the second one is always the one that has the keyed or the eared washers on it. That goes next, and that sits in grooves inside the main gear. And you can see how it sits inside there as opposed to laying on top. And then we just got to grab a box here that I have my drags in, and we'll go find the right ones for the fishing reel. Always the last place you look. Stop looking after you're done, right? So the drags for the 155 also fit the 160 series. Grab one of these. Put a little bit of dry grease on this one as well. Work that in. The dry grease keeps these flexible. Put that in. And it looks like we have a little bit of a rough surface on this last one here, so let's go ahead and take the steel wool, clean that up too. The rough surfaces, as long as they're not, as long as you can get them smooth again, they don't have to be replaced on the metal. What you're concerned about is pitting or raised surfaces, which are going to tear the drags up. In this case, these are okay. They're just cleaning up nicely. It's mostly tarnish, but as long as you have the pieces out, you might as well do that at this point. Okay, so we're going to put that back in. Then there's a cap washer that goes on. And while we're at it, again, we can remove the balance of this. So we're going to take the jack off. That simply hooks around the stud on the eccentric, the yoke and the spool gear, and that gives us access to the other side bearing cap. And this reel hasn't been serviced in a while because it's very dry. And check this out. There's no accumulated grease, but again, you can use that steel wall here to just kind of clean it up a little bit, make it nice and smooth for the operation of that spool gear. I'm going to grab the grease again, put a little bit on both sides of the neck of that. You don't need a lot. Most of it will get pushed off to the side. We can put a little bit onto the spool gear itself, and put a little bit onto the main gear. You don't have to get it in every tooth. As this rotates, it's going to spread that grease around. Reassemble it by loading it over the side bearing. Put the jack back in. That's how we found it. And then we're back to that anti-reverse. Now I think that we may be able to use that same spring. We'll see if we can hold the tension or not. If it doesn't, we'll replace that spring. But sometimes they just get pushed off to the side, and I think that's probably what happened here. Not quite sure how it happened, but it did. Okay, we start by loading this with the bridge at a perpendicular sitting on top of the spool gear. We're going to take one of the threaded screws from below. We're going to load the anti-reverse dog behind the bridge plate. And now we have that flat spring, and the flat spring sits on top of the dog and goes around the post and sits inside the thing. So right now we have this flat spring is on top of the dog, around the post, laying on the inside of that. And then we complete the rotation, and we want to give a turn or two to this screw just to get it seated. Don't tighten it all the way down because there's play in that bridge, and you want to make sure that you can get the other holes aligned before we go through the tightening process. I just did a visual check to make sure that that was aligned there. And again, I'm not going to tighten that one down either. I'm working northeast, southwest. Again, partially threaded goes through the springs. And when I put the next one in, we'll go take a well, that's interesting. And all the times I do these, oh, there it is. I was looking for the fourth screw. Alright, so once we get all the bridge screws in, including this one, we can tighten them all down. Do that in the opposite opposing directions, north, south, east, west again. Tighten them down now. And now we'll see if that anti-reverse is holding. If it's not, we'll replace the spring. Yep, we got a nice click there. So I'm thinking maybe it even just popped off, but it was holding its form. Now we're good again. We got the tension back. We've got the drag washer service. We come back now. We put the gear sleeve on. We put the star adjuster on. And then I'm going to put it back onto the reel before I put the handle back on. I'm going to use a little bit of that blue grease onto the shaft because we didn't get grease on the inside of the spool gear. Go ahead and load that up. Now the long screws go into the crossbars, as we mentioned earlier. One of the things we didn't mention earlier is if you're kind of stuck on this, if you don't know the sequence, if you lost your place somewhere along the line, go get a schematic of this reel. Schematics are out there on the internet. One of the sources of it is pennparts.com or Mystic Parts now. It's Mystic Parts. I'm just aligning the side plate hole there. I slipped a little bit when we took the reel apart. And just like the other ones, I'm going to go north, south, east, west. I'm not going to go circular. I want to make sure that I keep even tension on this reel as I set the side plate up. Long screws in the crossbar, short screws on the reel seat. If I wanted to, I could have put this on without the star adjuster there first. Probably would have saved me kind of working around it here as I put those screws in. It's inconvenient, but it's not terribly annoying. The other one in on this side. 2 more screws, and then we can tighten them all down. So this is the 160. This reel's been around a long time, at least 40 years. The Bakelite handles probably say it's 50 or 60 years. They changed the handles over to the single knob after a while. The more popular version of this was the 155, which was a wider chassis. Inshore, Bay, Deep Lake, Great Lakes, Ocean. Kind of very versatile from a reel. Casting reel, didn't have the level wind feature, you could cast it. And overall, it was a solid performer in the Penn line. Okay, back to that nice handle. If we didn't have the grease in there because we took that shaft off, we could go ahead and oil at it at this point. That's what it says on the button here. It says oil. But since I put the grease on there, we don't need to oil that. We'll tighten this down. Let's put it in gear, see what we got. Got a nice reel going there. The adjustment is just right on that. I was checking. You want a little bit of play, just where you can hear a knock. That's the right one. Sometimes people will over tighten this down. That's not the answer. You need a little bit of free play. And best of all, we now have a functional anti-reverse, which is what the reel came in for servicing on. And they got a bonus in that I did the drag service and the other pieces while we were at it. So I hope you've enjoyed that. This is the Penn 160. And if you have any of the Beachmaster or Baymeister series, the service is pretty much the same. So with that, I thank you for watching. This is Dennis, Second Chance Tackle. Have a good day.